Hey folks, I'm Bree and welcome to Controversy Month. Superman's Girlfriend Lois Lane, number 106. Superman's Girlfriend Lois Lane was a pretty popular comic in its day. It lasted from 1958 to 1974 and starred Lois Lane. She isn't the first character from a Superman comic to get her own series. Jimmy Olsen had one before her, but it was pretty popular, even outselling Superman and Superboy at one point. To be completely honest, I really need this after Song of the South. I mean, I could make excuses, but honestly, it's just because I find this hilarious. So...
Surprise, motherfucker.
Okay, first up, just look at that cover. Oh my gosh, it's so corny. I love it. I can just imagine how it tastes. Afro sheen and boot leather. Never would have guessed. I mean, look at that name. Superman's Girlfriend, Lois Lane. I haven't seen a name that good since...
They call me Yellow-Skinned Wacky Man.
You know, if that was the only hokey thing about this cover, that would be great.
But wait, there's more.
In true old school fashion, there's a cover that literally just makes me laugh. First of all, there's the title that literally just makes no sense to me. I'm curious, Black. And there's a panel that essentially just spoils the plot of the story. Just, yes, Superman, close the body mind and switch on the power. It's important that I live the next 24 hours as a black woman. Like, really? The fun thing about this cover is you just don't get covers like this anymore. You honestly don't. Now, don't get me wrong. There were covers that were like the standard covers today back then. But I would eat my friend here, Clownsy, if you could find me a comic today that is just this entertaining without it just being a total gag. Let it just be earnestly this entertaining. I need that, okay? Alright, that's enough of the cover. Let's move on to the actual comic, shall we? It starts off with Lois Lane questioning Superman if he would marry her now that she's black. And there's no answer, and we're actually going to go back to this later in the comic, so let's just ignore it for now. It cuts to seemingly earlier in the day with Lois Lane monologuing about how she's going to have the biggest scoop in a place called Little Africa. I think it's like Chinatown, but with less duck and more pig feet. Thank you, yeah. Boo you too, yeah. Mwah, mwah. Anywho, Lois narrates, I have the assignment of my life. I think you forgot a word there, Lois. Now, I have no room to judge because I can't word my way out of this sentence. But still, I'm not the one looking for a Pulitzer now, am I? I'm just a loser on YouTube. As she leaves, Superman decides to follow her, saying that she can't walk 2 feet without getting in some type of trouble.
Lois Lane? The one Superman always saves?
Afraid so.
Shortly, in Metropolis Black community. You can't miss it, there's only one. So, Lois walks up to 3 children and surprise, surprise, they don't talk to the strange lady who clearly doesn't live in the neighborhood. They're turning their backs on me. Oh, you don't say. It can't be because you're a stranger and they don't know you.
Call the police.
Realizing she would get nowhere with the children, she goes to a nearby slum so she can talk to some adults. It also doesn't go well. Good morning, Lois finally catches on that it's because she's white. Personally, I think it's because she's constantly bothering random strangers in the neighborhood where nobody clearly wants to talk to her. But hey, that's just me. Never mind, she's totally right, since it's proven exactly 2 seconds later.
Look, brothers and sisters, she's young, she's sweet, she's pretty.
Compliment her more, why don't you?
But never forget, she's whitey.
Yes, and as we all know,
Don't never ever trust Whitey.
to be fair, I think this is done well, if only because it shows the closed-mindedness on both sides. It fully admits that there are people like that in the world and there's a reason for how they're acting towards her, but then makes sure to say she's not actually like that and they're prejudging her purely based on her race, which is bad on both sides. It doesn't really dive into it even further, but it's good enough for what it is since they did have to skate around stuff, seeing as people are quick to be offended. After hours of apparently doing nothing, Superman shows up for no real reason to see how she's doing, and Lois comes up with a plan that requires him to take her to the Fortress of Solitude and change herself black. Then Superman restates what she already knows. So Lois dresses in her best dashiki and gets on her way to Little Africa. Before she gets there, she realizes that people are treating her differently. The taxi driver that helps her before outright ignores her. Benny gave me my first lesson in the meaning of black, and she stared at on a train. Is everyone really staring at me? As if I'm a freak? These two scenes could be taken two ways. Either she's being overly paranoid or people are actually treating her bad. The reason you can get that she's being overly paranoid is because the train scene. Only one guy is looking at her according to this art. So she is literally just being paranoid. But that may just be because the artists and the writers just didn't connect good enough for them to catch on to the fact that more than one person has to be staring at her for her to say, everyone is staring at me. But either way, I just kind of get the thought that she's maybe being a little bit overly paranoid. So in the middle of other pity party, she remembers she has a job to do and goes to an apartment building where there's a fire. She puts out the fire and meets this nice lady who invites her in for a drink. While there, they pretty much make it seem like her life is the saddest thing ever. I mean it. She makes good times look like the Jeffersons. Her life is sad. She literally fights off a rat that apparently comes out every night to harass her baby. Her life is sad. So of course we skip forward and she's never mentioned our scene again. The best show of a good story is setting up characters only to never see them again. Of course. We see what's described as a makeshift preschool teaching children that black is beautiful. Personally, I have no problem with this. When I was young, I was taught the phrase that I'm black and I'm proud, and this is the early 70s, just after the civil rights movement. It makes perfect sense that kids will be learning this. My only real problem is the fact that they should show them learning something else. Based on how this neighborhood acts, they're most likely already learning this type of stuff at home. I see no real reason for them to also learn it in school. It would be really beneficial to also show them learning basic math or spelling or something like that. It would show that the block is more than just
message.
Anyway, this scene only exists so she can bump into the guy she met before. He seems to recognize her, but their talk is cut short because he sees a bunch of teenagers going to an alley.
Those kids dropouts. They should be in school. I've got an idea of who they gonna do me in that alley. Stay here. This is man's business.
Yes, of course, because only a man can handle teenagers doing stupid things. Anyway, they both go into the alley where they see a group of mobsters teaching the kids how to sell drugs. The mobsters, of course, shoot first, thinking that they're cops. Anyway, the man gets shot, and Superman comes late, of course, since the man was already shot, and take the two to the hospital. While there, they find out that the hospital's low on a man's blood type, but Lois just so happens to be his blood type, so of course she gives him blood. He put his life on the line to help others. Please don't let him die. After he opens his eyes, Lois decides to talk to Superman, bringing us back to the scene from before. Look me straight in the eye and tell me the truth. Do you love me? Suppose the eye couldn't change back. Would you marry me? Even if I'm black, an outsider in a white man's world? This scene in some ways makes sense given the story. Throughout the story, it's been shown that Lois Lane has felt that she's been treated different since she's became a black woman. So it makes sense that she would question Superman about if he would still treat her the same despite being black. Especially since he wasn't really on board with her doing this to begin with. His response to this is also pretty well.
You asked this of me, Superman? A alien from Krypton, a other planet, a universal outsider? I don't even have human skin. It's tougher than steel.
I like this response because a part of Superman's character is sometimes given attention is the fact that he is an outsider. While he does have white skin, he's far different from any human.
What do you hear?
Nothing.
I hear everything.
You can argue that unlike skin color, he can actually hide his differences. But I can also argue the fact that he has to constantly hide part of himself and has to constantly be aware of his differences to function normal in society is also an unfavorable existence. Honestly, I couldn't imagine an existence where I had to easily touch everything and everyone because one off pat on the shoulder and... But then again, informs her that he wouldn't marry her anyway because marrying her would be dangerous and all that jazz. You know, he's willing to spend every day with her in broad daylight, but marrying her, no. That's too dangerous. I don't know why this was a common trend in his comics for a period of time. Maybe it's because the comics code authority, or maybe because they didn't want to have to make a deal with the devil. I don't know. So anyway, Lois turns white again, and the nurse comes in telling her the man wants to see her. She's scared to go in at first, seeing as he didn't like her when she was white, but Superman convinces her to go in anyway. When she goes in, the man looks shocked for a moment, but smiles, realizing that, yes, she is a good person. I'm gonna be honest, I'm not really a fan of these walk a day in my shoes type of stories. They tend to be written poorly, or over-exaggerate things too much, or just downright be annoying. One of my favorite cartoons of recent years even failed at one of these stories, so I wasn't really looking forward to reading this one, to be honest. But after reading it, I realized that the story is actually pretty well written and is pretty entertaining overall. Well, that was fun. Hey, I might even offended some people. Then again, that would mean someone was actually watching my channel. That couldn't happen. But by chance you are watching my channel, why don't you subscribe? You'll get to see my next video. It's going to be about a cute little lamb